Okay, we are ready to get going with Module 2 in our multisensory approach to language. I'm excited to have you back with us this week. I know last week you had many things that you were working on, and just know that some weeks will be a little heavier and some weeks will be a little lighter. I am working to have a better outline for you so that some of you that need to or want to, excuse me, work ahead, you are able to do that, hopefully very soon. That's where I'm working towards, because I know that's in your best interest as well. So this week you're going to be reading in the Yule text again, reading chapters 9, 10, and 11, covering semantics, pragmatics, and discourse analysis. So starting with semantics, just hitting the highlights, semantics just means the study of the meaning of words, phrases, and sentences. Okay, so this is when we're looking at meaning, semantics. And so when we look at these sentences, and these were ones that were in our text, the hamburger ate the boy, does that make sense to us? No, right? Syntactically, or that means grammatically, it is correct. We have a subject, a verb, and a predicate, excuse me, subject and a predicate. We have a noun, a verb, and another noun. Hamburger ate the boy. The same thing happens in the table listens to the radio. We have a noun, we have verb, and that's really all we need to have a complete sentence, right? But we still have another noun at the end of that sentence. And then the horse is reading the newspaper. So those are sentences that are grammatically or syntactically correct, but meaning-wise, they're not correct. Okay? So when we are looking at sentences and we're dealing with semantics, we have to think about, for example, in the first sentence, the hamburger ate the boy. If something is going to eat something, we need a significant difference from the first noun to the second noun, which allows the first noun to make sense with the verb that's going on. So we need something that makes sense to be doing the eating, and then the something that's being eaten. Okay? So when we think about hamburgers, are hamburgers able to be eaten? Yes. Can hamburgers do the eating? No. And so this is where we realize that semantically there is an issue with this sentence, and it really should be the boy ate the hamburger. And so when we dig into why things are not semantically correct and how we need to go about them, then we want to look at semantic feature analysis. And there's a link here to a Reading Rockets. I love Reading Rockets. There's a great little short article. There's a lesson plan. There's 2 videos there that work with this idea of semantic feature analysis. But it helps us when we're working with words and thinking about what they have in common and what they don't have in common. So when we go back and we think about the hamburger and the boy, so something does the eating, does that have to be something that can be an animate object if it's doing the eating? And the thing that's being eaten, does it have to be an animate object or an inanimate object? So those are the things that you're going to think about. I really like the chart on page 126 in your Yule text. So when you're trying to look at the distinguishing features between, we have table, horse, boy, man, girl, and woman. We're looking at first which ones are animate. Okay, which ones are human, which ones are female, which ones are adult, because maybe that is what was important and what I needed in my sentences. So that's what you're doing when you do a semantic feature analysis. So watch those couple of videos and read that article and read this chapter some more and explore that. We do this in our classrooms with our kids, and I would be willing to bet that many of you do it. If you don't call it semantic feature analysis, you may call it something else, but when we're comparing and contrasting, talking about similarities and differences, we are starting down that path of semantic feature analysis. And then when we're thinking about meaning, many times we think about words as containers of meaning. So this one word has one role, and that just is not the case in our language. And so these are the semantic roles: agent, theme, instrument, experiencer, location, source, and goal. And those are explained beautifully on pages 127 through 128. So I would like for you to look at those definitions, and it also gives you some examples. And I think that I love the way Yule writes. It's very easy to understand. So then what I want you to do this week is I want you to write 5 sentences for me for our semantics work. And it can be on any topic. And you're going to label the semantic roles. So you're going to underline the word and label what the role is. Is it a location? Is it an instrument? Is it an experiencer? Is it an agent? Is it a theme? Is it a goal? Okay, so I want you to label those in your sentences. You need all of your roles covered at least one time. Now, some of them you're probably going to use more than once, but I want you to have your role used at least one time. For many of you, this might be easier to do. I know when it comes to underlining and labeling, maybe you type your sentences out and then you print it and you underline and you label, and that's perfectly fine. And if you decide to do that, then you can take a picture of it or you can scan and upload it for me. Okay, but let me know if you have questions about those semantic roles, or if you want to write a sentence and have me look at it before you go on to the next ones. But I think that you'll have a little bit of fun with that assignment. Then the chapter starts talking about lexical relations, and a lot of these we know when we're dealing with synonyms or antonyms. Hyponymy is the meaning of when the meaning of one form is included in the meaning of another form. So, for example, if I am trying to describe to you or give you a definition of horse, it is an animal. That's a relationship or a semantic feature that it has, but I use that in describing what a horse is. Okay, so I use the meaning, an animal, a horse is a form of an animal. I use that one form to include, to give you the definition or know the meaning of this other form. Okay, then we have prototypes, and this helps explain not in terms of component features, but in resemblance to the clearest example. So if we're giving, they're talking about birds on page 132 when you're looking at prototypes. So when we're talking about like a robin, okay, is a type of a bird. Okay, so if we were trying to describe a bird, we might give robin as an example. Okay, so we might use that word instead of saying things like it has feathers, it flies, it has wings, but we might instead think about the clearest example to us. So when we think about, let's say, clothing, we might say, oh, like a shirt, okay, because that's something that's a really close and clear example. If we're talking about furniture, we might say a couch instead of maybe a coffee table, because that may be a clearer example. Homophones are those words that sound the same, have the same pronunciation. And then homonyms are different than homophones. This is when a word has, so we say same spelling, but it has multiple meanings. Okay, so a homonym could be pen, which is spelled P-E-N, whether it is a writing instrument or an enclosed space. Okay, polysemy is when there's one form, multiple meanings, all related by extension. And so this is where if we have, for example, the word that they used in the text was a head. Okay, so we have a head can refer to the object on top of our body, the froth on the top of a glass of beer, the person at the top of a company or a department or a school. All of those could describe a head. Okay, and then metonymy are words with close connection. So we might use one of those to refer to another. Like if we were talking about the White House, we would probably refer to the president. Or talking about a crown, we might refer to a king. So they have a close connection that's based on container content, like a bottle and water and a can and juice, or a whole part relationship, like a house and windows, or a car and a bumper, or a representative symbol relationship. And that was where we were just talking about the king and the crown and the president and the White House. So those are some relationships. And then I gave you another classroom example to look at of semantic mapping. There's another article there from Reading Rockets. And then there are 2 YouTube videos. Remember, I put those, I'm going to pop out of this. I put those in Blackboard, just the YouTube ones, in a separate folder for you. If you would like to not have to pop out, you can do that. But be sure and watch those 2 videos as a great example of semantic mapping. Okay, and that covers semantics, so be sure and read that chapter carefully and let me know if you have questions. Our next chapter is one that I find the most interesting, just because to me we see people that have difficulties with pragmatics. They typically have a severe language disorder. Many times they're autistic or somewhere on the spectrum. So pragmatics is the study of what speakers mean. And so sometimes this is called invisible meaning. And I have a clip here of you. I love the Big Bang Theory, and this is of Sheldon. And Sheldon is the epitome of pragmatics. He is very literal, and he does not understand that always necessarily what people mean, because how we use words and we use them differently, and we're sarcastic, and And so it's not always this literal meaning. So that I want you to check that video out just to kind of see your example. And then I also think about this, and the text referred to it, when you see the signs like the heated attendant parking. Does that mean that the attendant is hot? Does that mean, what does that mean? That the attendant is angry? And really it's just telling us that this is a heated parking space where you can parking area where you can park, and there's an attendant. And then it had the other example that was the sign for the baby and toddler sale. Well, they're not selling babies and toddlers, but if you had difficulties with pragmatics, you might think, literally, are they selling babies and toddlers? When really it might be clothes or toys or whatever. And so these are some examples, other ones that I have found for you. This one right here, eat here and get gas. So is this a place that serves something that's going to make us gassy? No. What they're trying to say is this is somewhere that you can eat and that also you can get gas in your car. So you have to be very careful because people with difficulties with pragmatics look at this very literally. This is a perfect example in the middle. Please check if you flushed. Well, that means they want us to look and make sure that we have flushed. But you see, these are probably smart alecks. But if not, they could be people that struggle with pragmatics. And they're like, okay, I put a check mark there. I flushed. Okay. Caution, heavy pedestrian traffic. Well, does that mean a heavy person like was drawn on this sign? No, that's not usually what our signs mean. It means that there's going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic. So we just have to be really careful of words that we choose. So you're going to have a discussion board on pragmatics this week, and you're going to answer, why is pragmatics so important in our daily lives, in our classrooms, and then how might you work with struggling students to improve in the area of pragmatics, because you're likely going to encounter someone that has difficulty in this area. Okay, so that's your discussion board. Remember, first post by Friday, respond to 2 others by Sunday. And then the last chapter covers discourse analysis. And discourse analysis is a lot of different things. It's how we make sense of what we read. It's how we can recognize well-constructed texts as opposed to those that are incoherent or jumbled or not well arranged or constructed. How we understand speakers who communicate more than they say. Okay, when you hear someone talk, it's more than just the words that come out of their mouth, right? And then how we take part in conversation. All of that is included in discourse analysis. And so the big thing for me, I think about right off the top of my head when I see this chapter and I'm thinking about oral language, is I'm thinking about conversations and how kids have to be taught things like turn taking and just how to have a conversation. So I have 3 videos there for you. Oh, no, they're not videos actually. These are, thank you, these are not videos. These are links to activities. So these are from the Busy Teacher blog, 7 great activities for conversation in your class. And then pragmatics is going to be very important when you're working with ESL or ELL populations. And so this is from the ESL Conversation Questions website, icebreakers and spelling activities. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, those that are autistic or on the spectrum generally have great difficulties with pragmatics, and so this is a link to teaching conversation skills. So these are some really great activities that hopefully you can take and use. Many of you are kindergarten teachers. That's very exciting to me. So some of you might find things that you can take and use immediately, and others might just find things that you're going to take and kind of store in your wheelhouse for a little bit later. So for our next module next week, it's going to start with a quiz over the material that we covered in modules 1 and 2. My quizzes, I don't mind that you use your book and materials. They are timed, but it's more than enough time that you need. So don't worry about that. And it's generally multiple choice, fill in the blank. I really feel like I get a lot of I don't do a lot of short answer and discussion on quizzes because we do that in our discussion boards. Okay, so this is just a way for me to see, just double check that you're staying caught up with us and staying caught up with the text. Okay, so that will be in our next module. That's how we'll start. This week I will have information for you about the field requirement for this course, the assignments and expectations and due dates. I know that's very important to you, especially when you're trying to coordinate doing videos and those types of things. So I want to be sure that you have that so that you have plenty of notice. And just know again that I am working on getting us ahead several weeks and having a better outline of our course. I know that some of you need that. Some of you want that. I know I love that myself. So I'm really working to get that together for you and have you not be week by week. So thank you for bearing with me and hanging in. So for your homework this week, you had your research paper that was, and I call it a research paper, it was 4 pages. And you're going to cite a source or two, right? So maybe mini research is a good way to put it. Over the theories of oral language development, and that is due on the 4th. And then also due for this week will be 5 sentences where you underline and label the semantic role. And then you have 1 discussion board to answer and then to respond to 2 others. So I hope you have a great week. Please let me know if you have any questions at any time. That is what I'm here for. You cannot email me too many times, I promise. So email away. Let me know how I can help you. I'm very excited to be working with you this semester. I'm excited again about all of the different experiences and voices that we have in this classroom. So please share with us and feel free if you have something, a resource to share over a topic that we're studying. I'm a continuous learner. That's what educators are, right? We continuously learn and find new information. So I'd love to hear from you. So have a great rest of your weekend and a great week.